From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Alabama's children are getting the gift of reading from the one and only Dolly Parton. Governor Kay Ivey this week kicked off a statewide expansion of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, the legendary singer's project to provide free books to children every month from birth to age 5. The idea is to encourage parents to read to their children and set them on a path to learning reading skills themselves. Ivey joined educators and parents to kick off the expansion, saying it can make a big difference in children's lives.
And it's really important that our parents start reading to our children while they're just babies. And we must encourage our children to open books during their earliest developmental stages. And that's why I'm proud to officially announce today the statewide expansion of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library book gifting program. This program through the state and community support will help to eventually ensure every child in Alabama can receive books directly to their homes each month after they're born until they're 5 years of age.
And I first just want to thank Governor Ivey. Thank you for this initiative, and thank you for giving parents like me, helping us take that responsibility of their intellectual growth so early so that when they get into school, they are ready to learn and the teachers can continue on with the hard work that they're already doing. So, Governor Ivey, thank you again.
I'll speak in more detail about this project with Dr. Jan Hume of the Department of Early Childhood Education later in the show. The Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission met this week to reissue licenses for companies vying to be a part of the medical marijuana business in Alabama. Remember that the commission originally awarded licenses back in June, but that decision was put on hold after scoring inconsistencies were discovered and multiple lawsuits were filed. Rex Vaughn, the commission's new chairman, said he is confident the process has worked properly this time and that potential mistakes have been corrected.
We thought we had some awarded June of 12th, but after some inconsistencies in tabulation, we were all aware that we had some errors. So we had to go back to the drawing board and see where we had fell short. The evaluators that provided the information to assess and tabulate, and the scoring got off base. There were a few changes, and we knew that was probably going to come because we knew ahead of time, based on the missed scoring, that there was some off base. There would be some replacement, re-ranking, and it was minor, as you said, but we're happy with where we are now.
For a full list of those companies that were awarded licenses, visit the Commission's website at aamc.alabama.gov. By now, most everyone has seen the viral videos of the brawl that took place last weekend on the Alabama riverfront. 2 white men attacked a black dock worker after arguments over moving their pontoon boat out of the city's riverboat docking area. What ensued was a chilling melee that broke down on racial lines. 3 men and a woman have since been arrested, and the police say that more are being sought. The event brought unwanted national attention to the capital city, but Mayor Stephen Reed said he doesn't want one incident to define the city.
I don't think you judge any community by any one incident. As Chief said before, this is not indicative of who we are. As a matter of fact, the people on the pontoon boat are not residents of Montgomery. So I think it's important for us to address this as an isolated incident, one that was avoidable, and one that was brought on by individuals who chose the wrong path of action. From the time they were notified that they were in the vicinity of where the Harriet parks, to how they responded to when they were given a second notice of that. So this is not indicative of our community at all, and I think people will view this as the actions of a few individuals and not characterize the entire community.
A group of midwives and doctors have filed suit against the state, saying the Department of Public Health has created uncertainty around the legal status of birth centers that provide midwife-led care. Capitol Journal's Karen Goldsmith has the story.
Pregnant women in rural Alabama have limited access to health care. There is a healthcare center in Sumter County in my area. It's about 25 miles away. People can receive a pregnancy test there. That means they can find out that they're pregnant, and that's where it ends. Then they must travel to neighboring Marengo County or to Tuscaloosa or to Meridian, Mississippi. That is about as definitionally accurate of a healthcare desert as we can get.
And that is why Dr. Stephanie Mitchell established Sumter County's Birth Sanctuary, a place where midwives can provide patient-centered care. But she and two of her colleagues who've also established birth centers say an Alabama Department of Public Health regulation has halted their work, and they've taken legal action. Attorney Whitney White.
Our clients filed this lawsuit because the department is refusing to allow birth centers to operate in Alabama without having a hospital license. But at the same time, the department is making it impossible for any birth center to even apply for such a license, even going so far as to shut down one birth center that had a perfect record of patient safety.
That center was founded by Dr. Heather Skanes.
We were the only such birth center operating in Alabama at the time, and every single birth that happened at the center was successful with no complications, and the moms and babies are doing well today.
And Dr. Yashika Robinson says the roadblock imposed by public health has stopped the construction of her birth center.
For years, I have poured my heart and soul into this project, acquiring the property, starting planning and construction, and raising funds to support these efforts.
And the ACLU of Alabama Executive Director adds that reproductive health in Alabama is not a priority.
Lawmakers have stood idly by if hospitals have closed and doctors have moved away. They have looked the other way as patients travel long distances across counties and even state lines to receive basic health care services because they live in an area where adequate care does not exist.
Public Health says the Alabama Department of Public Health has just recently learned of the filing of this lawsuit and has not had the opportunity to review it fully. ADPH does not otherwise comment on active litigation. For Capital Journal, I'm Karen Goldsmith.
It's back to school time, and that means kids and teachers often come back home with a cold. Plus, there's another round of COVID going around. Capital Journal's Randy Scott caught up with State Health Officer Dr. Scott Harris about the best ways to stay healthy.
It's that time of the year. School's back. Football's back. And respiratory illnesses are also back. It's a big reason why August is National Immunization Month.
It's no accident that the month chosen for that is August, when kids are getting ready to go back to school. That's when we start to see the emergence of these fall infections that cycle every single year, and that's when you get kids all back together, in a classroom, real close together, and they're eating and drinking and, sharing meals together and spending a lot of time indoors. So this is the time when we want moms and dads to really be thinking about getting their kids up to date.
State Health Officer Dr. Scott Harris says recent issues with illnesses have taken their toll on citizens.
Even though it doesn't feel like the fall, it is school time again. Kids need to be updated. We saw over the past 2 or 3 years a lot of kids get behind in the immunizations they normally would have had. There were so many disruptions going on. Those numbers are getting a little better. Alabama parents are bringing their kids back to get shots, but there's still a number of kids who are behind.
Dr. Harris says now is the time to take action to make sure young people have their shots.
For routine childhood vaccination, there's plenty of time to still get those. There's plenty of vaccine available. There's plenty of capacity for that. For folks who have a pediatrician, of course, that's the best place to get your health care and your information. We also have vaccines available at no cost to low-income kids throughout the state and every county in the state.
And adults are also covered, says Dr. Harris.
We're still awaiting the arrival of flu shots, everywhere, because those aren't quite out yet. We know there's going to be a new vaccine for RSV for seniors, as you know, and then there's going to be a new formulation of COVID vaccine. So there's some other things out there that aren't quite available yet.
As much as people want COVID gone, it's still around, says Dr. Harris. That means a new booster to combat that infection and others, including RSV.
We do expect the booster to be available in the next month or so. As fall gets here, we want people to just be aware of all those respiratory tract infections that we tend to see. You know, COVID is one that people are really tired of hearing about, but we want to remind people about flu as well. Flu's never gone anywhere. It's still with us.
For Capital Journal, I'm Randy Scott.
We'll be right back with tonight's guests.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Joining me next are Dr. Neil Lamb, president of the Hudson Alpha Institute, and Mayor Mark Saliba of the city of Dothan. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Well, no, we're talking about Hudson Alpha in the Wiregrass, and before we get started, I wanted to air this short clip from your organization about Hudson Alpha in the Wiregrass, so enjoy.
Hudson Alpha Wiregrass is transforming the way DNA research is used to solve some of the world's most challenging problems.
It's transformative because it takes the power of DNA and tomorrow's technologies, and it puts it in the hands of farmers and students and entrepreneurs in the Wiregrass region.
Our new home will be in the new Wiregrass Innovation Center in downtown Dothan. Learn more at hudsonalpha.org/wiregrass.
Well, that tells an interesting story. So I'm glad we got sort of a refresher. But Dr. Lamb, I thought I'd start with you just to remind our audience about Hudson Alpha up there in Huntsville, where the idea came from, where it's developed to now that it's 15 years since the founding.
That's right. So Hudson Alpha is a nonprofit research institute really focused around genomics, so focused around the power of DNA and how we can use genomics to make the world a better place, to improve life in human health and agriculture and in biodiversity. So the institute really is themed around three broad parts of our mission. The first is using genomics in research. So how do we understand the way that changes in DNA impact human health or wellness? Or in what we're talking about, how do they impact issues around agriculture and how you can help plants grow and produce more in changing environmental conditions. Then there's an economic development component. In addition to the nonprofit research, there are 50 biotech companies on our campus taking ideas and turning them into products. It really is intentionally an economic driver of the state. In the last 15 years, it's provided $4.2 billion in economic benefit to the state of Alabama.
Wow.
And then the third component is education, which is really how do we help people understand what genomics is, how it's used in everyday life, and how do we train the future workforce for the people that will step into these careers on the Hudson Alpha campus, around Alabama, or around the world. So that's kind of the goal of the threefold mission of Hudson Alpha. Hudson Alpha Wiregrass brings all three components of that work into the Wiregrass, specifically with a focus around agriculture and agricultural innovation.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mayor, it must have been exciting when this idea was first formed to have, an institution like Hudson Alpha coming to the Wiregrass right there in the city of Dothan. Talk about it.
Well, it was an exciting thing, and when we first met Dr. Lamb and some of his team in the Dothan area, it wasn't really at top of mind that they actually could be a partner of ours in the Wiregrass area. But the more we heard about what Hudson Alpha does, especially in the research with agriculture, and agriculture is such a big part of our economy in the southeast Alabama and the Wiregrass that that's our backyard is his laboratory for agriculture, and especially with the crops of peanuts and the focus on peanuts, that it seemed like such a natural fit for us, and building a new ecosystem on an already strong asset in our area like agriculture.
Mm-hmm. When folks hear the word research, they may conjure up different images, based on, I'm not as versed in this stuff as y'all are, but if you look at, places like Huntsville, like North Carolina, like where some of these, really famous research parks are, it really does come with that economic development component. But how does that happen? How does research get translated into economic development in a place like Dothan?
What we're looking at, as what we start with in Hudson Alpha Wiregrass, is, as Mayor Saliba said, the peanut. So one of the incredible things about plants is plants have figured out how to grow in lots of different places and how to survive in lots of different conditions by changing their DNA. There've been mutations or alterations in the DNA that give that plant an advantage. We can take advantage of that looking across the natural variation that's present across multiple varieties of peanut, and then think about how we use that to create a peanut that will thrive specifically in the wiregrass with the soil type and the climate of the wiregrass. And we use genetics to help us drive what that breeding scheme looks like. So now you've got a product that people want to buy. And so now you're creating an engine for economic development. But as you have that kind of set of tools, the ability to sequence through the DNA of plants, the computational tools to mine that information, now you're beginning to build a critical mass where other companies who are involved in agriculture, maybe they use genomics directly, maybe they like the tools that come along with that, see the wiregrass as a place for them to build their new company or to relocate into that area. So you really have this gravitational pull around the research that then directly and indirectly brings all these other players to the table.
So that research, it's at the end of the day, it's valuable. Right? It's valuable to anybody who wants to come and invest. And you like folks coming to invest in and around your city.
Absolutely.
Let's also talk about education and what the impact that Hudson Alpha can have in the Wiregrass and in specifically the city of Dothan on the education front, K through 12 and higher ed.
It's great. The first initiative that has come out of the Hudson Alpha Wiregrass has been focused a lot on education. So they came into 4 of our schools, our local schools, some city and county. So this is not just a city of Dothan. This is a Houston County and the Wiregrass area as well. And so bringing in the science behind the genomics and putting it in the hands of high school youth has been extremely exciting, and the reception that we have gotten from those kids has been great, and I'm sure Dr. Lamb can talk a little more about that.
Well, the mayor does a great job of laying that out. That process of developing a better peanut, we actually are partnering our researchers under the leadership of Dr. Josh Clevenger with our education team and students. Students are actually doing that work that traditionally you would find at a university. So it's introducing them to a whole new set of skills, but there's an amazing relevance because this is a product that either they, their family, or their neighbors or people that they know grow every year.
Sure, it's a community regional thing, right?
Exactly. So you are having students help create a new peanut for the wiregrass. They are actively a part of that. It engages them whether they're interested in agriculture or they want to understand genetics and genomics, or they're interested in the computational analysis or the marketing and communications behind that. And so you've now begun to build this hands-on project that students can plug into for multiple different angles and avenues. And then you can begin to train the teachers on that. And then we can look at, all right, well, we've created this variety of peanut. How do we think about other varieties? Or maybe we think about other crops that we can connect to. And then there are educator workshops for elementary, middle, and high school teachers across the Wiregrass. And ultimately, there'll be summer camps and internship programs. So you'll build this really from elementary school on through graduate school, this pathway of programs that students in the community can begin to engage in.
I know that education component in the schools, with the workshops, with the teachers, that's really been present since the founding of Hudson Alpha, and so critical to the mention. And you sort of hit on it. How important is it for the future of research, for the future of science, for that interest in science from even a young age, and to have our teachers come and be hands-on and see what it's like so they can kind of bring that back to their classrooms? Is it important to have that pipeline of students that are becoming fascinated with science?
I think it is absolutely critical, not only to the work of Hudson Alpha Wiregrass and Hudson Alpha in general, but to the mission of our country. We are always only one generation away from no longer sitting at the lead in fields of science, technology, and math. And so we are always dependent on engaging that next generation, providing them the foundational skills they need, but also exciting them, having their eyes light up about there's an opportunity here for them, and how do we help them get there from where they currently sit.
It allows them to, too, if they're a second generation, third generation farmer, that it's not just owning a piece of land and farming, but there's more opportunities there. And it's opportunities in the wiregrass that we may not have had before. And that's especially exciting to me, being able to provide those opportunities for jobs of the future in genomics and science. And so, watching those kids, I've been to those classrooms and watching them have fun. And as Dr. Lamb said, they're doing work that sometimes you wouldn't have done until you've gotten into college. Extracting the DNA from a peanut plant and then helping decide which traits are going to make the best peanut. That opens up and sparks interest in their minds that would have not been possible before.
Yeah. Well, when I hear you talk about it, I can see the excitement about Dothan, about the wiregrass. But it seems to me that maybe this is something that could be replicated in other regions of the state and maybe even outside of our state. So, Mayor, what would you say to other mayors or county commissioners or whatever who sought a similar kind of partnership? And is that possible? Do you see other regional efforts for Hudson Alpha in the future?
Well, I'll speak to the first part.
Right. What advice would you have for those mayors?
I think that any elected official that's worth his salt is always looking for that one thing that can span across multiple pieces of community development, and the research and the education and innovation, the entrepreneurship and providing those opportunities. It just made so much sense. But the model that I think that really has to be replicated on my part is that when you find someone that is genuinely concerned with doing what's right and what's best for the community as a whole, and not necessarily built on anything else, that's what really excited me, is that I knew and I could see the genuineness in Dr. Lamb and others that I've met with Hudson Alpha in Huntsville. That to me was that's how you build regionalism, and that's how you build up community. And I think that's the key to doing that across our state, no matter what it may have been, whether it's in science in partnership with a municipality.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that one of the reasons why Hudson Alpha Wiregrass even is in existence is because of the natural connection between the genomics expertise of Hudson Alpha and the agricultural strengths of the wiregrass. But it goes deeper than that, as the mayor said. There really is an authentic desire to look for how do we create something that actually benefits everyone. That may sound very idealistic, but that really was one of the goals that brought us together, was that desire that we are working for the same goals, and there will be challenges, and we will work through those together. I think as you think about these kinds of partnerships across the state or in other places, it's important to think about what are the strengths that you naturally have, and what are the parts of the ecosystem that you would like to be able to bring to the table, and who actually has that set of skills, and how do you go out and identify those partners. But a significant piece is the interaction between the individuals and the teams that you each encounter.
Sure. Well, it's just such a fascinating thing. I mean, watching Hudson Alpha through the years, just, the amazing things y'all are doing. Now with Hudson Alpha Wiregrass, we love highlighting things that are points of pride for the state of Alabama, and this really is one. And so congratulations and best luck. But we want to come down. We want to come down with our cameras and see it for ourselves, both in the Wiregrass and in Huntsville. So I hope we can arrange that in the future.
We would love that.
Yeah, we would love that, and look forward to doing that.
Absolutely. Well, we're out of time, but gentlemen, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Former basketball player and Hall of Famer Charles Barkley is one of Alabama's most recognizable sports stars. Nicknamed the Round Mound of Rebound and Sir Charles, the Leeds native had a remarkable basketball career with the Auburn University Tigers before embarking on a career in the NBA. Barkley also played for the U.S. Olympic basketball team in the 1992 and 1996 Summer Games. Since his retirement in 2000, Barkley has carved out a niche as a basketball analyst, author, and commentator on political and social issues. Since 2001, Auburn University, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Phoenix Suns have retired Barkley's number 34 jersey. In 2006, Barkley was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts.
You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Joining me next is Kent Davis, Commissioner of the Alabama Department of Veterans Affairs. Commissioner, thanks for coming on the show.
Todd, it's great to be back.
Well, we have been following your efforts, your department's efforts on the issue of resilience.
Yeah.
I know you've had a couple of events, one here in Montgomery, another in the Birmingham area, about helping folks who may be in need of help in this area learn resilience, learn about resilience. But what became interesting and very personal is you not only were leading this effort as a department, you became part of the resilience story with your own struggle with lymphoma. Can you talk about that and how that taught you about resilience?
Absolutely. It was a coincidence. We had been having this discussion about being a little more proactive with the veteran community instead of reactive. We had tended to wait until a veteran had a crisis and we responded to it. And we thought maybe we ought to teach the life skills so veterans and family members, first responders, avoid those crises by learning how to get through difficult moments through resilience. It just so happened as we were kicking that idea around, I got diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma cancer, so I could speak with empathy about getting through a tough situation.
Wow. How did you find out? What was that diagnosis like?
It's really weird, and this is a lesson learned for anybody, but especially men. Do not shy away from checking out health problems. I was literally shaving one day and found a lump in my neck and called my doctor. At first, we both thought nothing of it, but then it kept growing. Got another lump on my shoulder, so I got referred to a specialist here in Montgomery, and it turned out I was at stage 3 with lymphoma cancer.
But you went to the doctor. Thank God you did when you did, because if it would have grown even further.
Yeah, apparently I was on borderline stage 4. It had not spread to my bone marrow. Thank goodness. That would have been a whole different discussion. But because I was so advanced at that point, and mind you, I had really no symptoms. It happened very fast.
Okay.
But I immediately started chemotherapy. I had 6 rounds of 8 hours apiece of chemotherapy right here in Montgomery at the Montgomery Cancer Center. They were wonderful. Got through about 5.5 months of that, and initial reports are that that's been successful, and I'm starting to feel much better every single day. But I thank God I went to the doctor.
Yeah, well, you look great, and I was following your journey on Facebook, and different hair.
Yeah, if you saw me about a month and a half ago, I was completely bald, and I'm thankful that my hair is coming back, and I'll have a full head one day. And
you talk about 8-hour rounds of chemo. That's got to be just physically taxing, but also psychologically, and from getting that diagnosis. What's the psychology like? What's that mental feeling? Because I'm getting to the point of that resilience challenge.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of our discussions about resilience actually helped me get through that. So some of the lessons learned in our discussions really helped me. So I did what we teach. I surrounded myself with other people. I kept coming to work. I thought it was important. Even when I didn't feel really good, I just went into work because it kept me connected with coworkers, with our clients, and I felt like there was a purpose there for getting up every day despite how I felt. I also tried, secondly, to focus on the positive. It's so easy today in the world, we live in a world with many woes, it's so easy to focus on the negative stuff, but I try to think about all the things I was thankful about: family, friends, coworkers, our mission in the Alabama Department of Veterans Affairs especially. So focusing on those was important. I talked about purpose. That was really important. Faith played a part in that. Your personal faith can drive your purpose in life. And I think those three things: purpose, positivity, and surrounding yourself with other people who can support you was really important. And we teach that in the resilience training.
Yeah. So as you shared that at these events, I'm curious what the feedback has been, both in person, maybe on social media, things like that.
It's been very good. It is a different approach we're taking. Instead of just reacting to veterans in crisis, we're trying to get ahead of the problems, and we've gotten some positive feedback. And we have had quite a few veterans approach us. Sometimes they approach us at the events, sometimes afterwards, saying, "Thank you. You let me know some assets that I wasn't aware was out there, and I'm going to take advantage of those." So even if we can turn around one veteran or their family member or first responder, or even a member of the general public who can find the assets they need and the strength they need to get through a miniature crisis or even before a crisis, we've done our job.
And you think about the word resilience, and in context with veterans. I mean, these are tough people that go through a lot of training to be tough. And it seems to me, resilience doesn't have to mean, grin and bear it.
No.
There are resources. There are ways to talk through things. It doesn't just mean stiff upper lip kind of thing.
Actually, Todd, great question. It's just the opposite. We try to encourage veterans, don't just keep it inside you. That's dangerous because it builds up. And yeah, most veterans are tough. They face combat situations. Sometimes mental health issues don't manifest themselves until years later. I mean, we still see Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans just now are haunted by the memories of war. And then they face personal difficulties that are tough to get through. It's not good to keep that bottled up inside. So we encourage them to overcome the stigma. Talk to someone. There are plenty of assets available out there, even if it's another veteran.
Sure.
Sometimes they're the best asset because they can understand what you've been through.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just a great idea. It's a great program that y'all are putting on, and I imagine it's not finished. It's going forward.
Oh no, this is just the beginning. We've done events in Montgomery and Hoover, wonderful events. The Chamber of Commerce here in Montgomery was the host for one. The city of Hoover was another host. They welcomed us with open arms. We got their first responder community involved in those discussions as well, because similar issues with military and emergency responders as well. So that's been very heartening to incorporate them in our discussions. That's only the beginning. We're already putting together a schedule for follow-on Operation Resilience events.
I love the idea of proactive versus reactive, and I think that's a testament to you and your department for having that foresight, and maybe a lot of lives could even be saved because of that. I wanted to switch gears and talk about two initiatives two projects that your department's working on. One is the Enterprise Veterans Hub. Last time you were here, you talked about, I guess it was just a groundbreaking back then, and how's the progress so far?
You would be amazed. We're about 65% complete with construction. I was actually there in the last few days, and I was amazed. The basic structure of the facility is done. They're actually starting a lot of the interior work now. Believe it or not, it is on schedule and on budget for an opening in late summer of 2024.
Wow, and that's through some pretty tough construction, times.
Yeah, we had to deal with the supply pipeline
Right.
issues and the aftermath of COVID and all that, but we've kept it on track. And like I said, we look forward to having a ribbon cutting probably late summer, early fall of 2024. And it's going to help veterans because we currently do have a waiting list to get into our state veterans homes. It's quite large.
I was going to ask you, who is the candidate for a facility like this?
So we cater to elderly and disabled veterans who need long-term care. The range of our services is everything from assisted living care through traditional skilled nursing care, even to memory care units, which take care of Alzheimer's and dementia patients, for instance. So a real need out there. This is a way of giving back to those veterans who have served the country. Our clients range from younger, severely disabled veterans to, we have quite a few World War II veterans still in our homes that just can't take care of themselves at home anymore.
Wow. Well, we'll look forward to that ribbon cutting, and of course that Wiregrass area is such a military and veteran footprint down there.
It is. Fort Novacell has been wonderfully supportive, as well as all of the community and government officials in the Enterprise and Coffee County area. It's really, really heartwarming to see the partnerships we've built across the state, but especially on this project.
And you've also got the expansion of the cemetery there in Spanish Fort. How's that going?
We do. We have a lot of irons in the fire these days. We opened our state veterans cemetery about 11 years ago, and frankly, we were running out of space. With a veterans cemetery, you have to plan well in advance, and you have to build out burial fields in that cemetery for veterans. So we applied for a grant a couple of years ago from the federal government. We got it, $5 million, and we've started the process of adding about 4,000 burial plots, which will get us through about the next 10 years of growth. The demand for that facility has outpaced our original estimates, so this is a needed improvement. We're going to develop quite a few more acres. They are actually putting in place the burial vaults now in several acres, and we're adding cremated remain spaces as well in the facility, and it'll carry us through about the next 10 years.
And if viewers haven't actually been down to see it, it is a beautiful facility. So much obviously has gone into planning it. I mean, it takes you to Arlington, really, and the way it's laid out and designed.
It does. It looks a lot like Arlington, the same headstones. We're very proud of it. We say that we're responsible for veterans from the time they take off their uniform, literally into eternity. And it's a dignified, honorable burial place for those veterans and their families that they can come back and visit their loved ones.
A special way to honor vets. Well, look, we're out of time. Commissioner, thanks so much for coming on the show. We are grateful that you are back and in great health, and just thank God for your recovery.
Thanks so much, Todd, and I appreciate everyone's kind thoughts and prayers.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Birmingham, Alabama native Fannie Flagg, who is best known for her novel Fried Green Tomatoes, had a long career as an actress and comedian before dedicating herself to writing. Published in 1987, Fried Green Tomatoes, a story of racial and gender inequalities told through the unlikely but strong bonds of its female characters, resonated with audiences. The novel stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 36 weeks and was adapted into a critically acclaimed movie.
Joining me next is Dr. Jan Hume, Acting Secretary for the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education. Dr. Hume, thanks for coming on Capital Journal.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I know it's a big week for your department because the big announcement with Dolly Parton and her Imagination Library really coming to Alabama, a big announcement with Governor Ivey. Before we get started, I wanted to air this special clip that Dolly sent here to Alabama. So let's show the clip.
Well, hello, Alabama! It's Dolly, and I am so excited to help announce that my Imagination Library is coming to Alabama, and that is wonderful, don't you think? A lot of good people have worked to make our Imagination Library dream for Alabama a reality, but I want to send my very special thanks to Governor Kay Ivey for her leadership in making this possible. Now, we have plenty of work ahead, And I'm thrilled that we'll be working with the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education to ensure that every young child in Alabama has access to books early in life. So congratulations, Alabama. Happy reading. And remember that I will always love you.
I mean, just Dolly Parton, she's one of a kind. That's got to be really special to have that message. And she name check your department. That's got to be exciting for you.
It is so exciting. Our department has been doing great things for a lot of years, and this just really adds to the number of programs and the ways that we can serve children and families in the state.
Mm-hmm. Well, walk me through how this works. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library. How does it get started? What does it mean?
So Dolly Parton Imagination Library really is a grassroots community-based organization. It is usually done at the local level. We are coming in as a state partner to really provide some seed money and kickstart programs so that all children can be served. We have a few counties in Alabama that are not served at all. We have some counties that have partial service. And the goal is to make sure that every zip code in the state of Alabama has coverage. And so we recruit community partners to work with us on that, and then they work with the Dollywood Foundation. Once those partners are recruited and online, then parents can sign up their children in those areas.
And just so I understand, and backing up a little bit, this is providing books on a regular basis to children. What age is it?
Ages birth to 5.
Okay.
So up until their 5th birthday. It's never too young to start reading to children. We want to make sure that they're being read to way before they're able to read themselves. The beauty of the Imagination Library is it puts books in the hands of caregivers and parents, and so that they can get children used to playing with books, loving books, looking at the pictures, opening and closing books, all the things. It's much more than just about reading. It's about getting them ready and loving to read.
Mm-hmm. And so just talk about how important that is. I mean, I'm just, I'm thinking how my mother would read to me, and it made such a difference in learning to read early and really a career in the written word, right? And so it's not necessarily that these children are reading themselves at 4 years old, right? It's the hearing the books and reading and experiencing that, and talk about how that adds to their development.
So one of the things that's so important is just talking to children and having that exchange, that back and forth. Even before they can talk, the interaction that they have with adults is so important. The cooing, the noises, the focusing on you, looking at different things. And so really that interaction is where we start. And then we get into the books are really a vehicle for guiding those interactions and then helping children and adults sort of talk to each other. It turns into pointing to pictures of things, and it really builds their language, their vocabulary, and their love of learning.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me that this is so important because we may take for granted the availability of books. I can go to the library, I can go to the bookstore, but some people don't have access to those books, and so this comes in and really fills that gap.
It does. And in the research that the Dollywood Foundation puts out, they show that 60% of families and homes, or 60% of homes in areas where there are highest poverty, they don't have books in their home. And so we've got to make sure that every family has access to books. And the beauty about the Imagination Library is they're mailed to the home.
Okay.
With the child's name on there, so the child's getting a package every month.
That's special.
Yeah. And so they have a package, a book coming to them every month from the time they're born until they turn 5.
That's great. I mean, it's just a special program. It's like the little things,
Yeah.
But they make such a big difference. Well, walk me through how this works. I mean, how do you go about getting buy-in in communities throughout Alabama that aren't served?
So a lot of the communities that we've talked to that don't have service, it's because they don't have the funding. So this partnership allows us to to start them off and get them the funding from the very beginning. And then eventually they'll raise 50% of the cost of the program. But the ARPA fund, the GEARS 2 funds, and then the state ETF dollars will help us provide that seed money. And then also in areas where we've got providers, they may not have enough funds to cover all children. And so we can help those existing providers by adding to their funds so that they can sign up and serve more children.
Well, that's great. And who better than Dolly Parton, our national treasure, to be spearheading this? That's fun. Maybe we'll get an in-person visit one day.
I think that's part of the program.
Oh, really?
That's part of the plan. If we get every zip code covered, she will come to Alabama.
Well, that's some incentive.
Yes.
And we will be there when she is. Well, I wanted to switch gears and talk about First Class Pre-K, the award-winning program that we've always been just so proud of. And of course, while it's tops for quality, the issue has always been access, right? Getting more and more 4-year-olds access to Pre-K. I know that the most recent budget that was passed this year, increase of $8 million in the regular budget to $186 million, I think. $4 million in the supplemental. So that's historic funding, as high as it's ever been. Where does that get us in terms of classrooms coming online and expanding that access?
So the line item in the ETF, as you know, we've grown First Class Pre-K incrementally because we knew there would be a time where we wouldn't have the workforce. If we fully funded it like some other states did immediately in 1 year, they struggled with quality. When we talk about high quality, there are 10 benchmarks. 5 of those benchmarks have to do with the teachers in the classroom.
Okay.
And so workforce is a key part of that. But what this funding does is it keeps that incremental growth plan going. And we have seats for about 47%, between 45 and 47% of the state's 4-year-old population with this increase in funding.
And I know the governor has laid out a goal of 70%, right? Talk about what that number means, because you think 70, well, why not 100? But is that where we think kind of the capacity is, or like the interest would be?
Yeah, so a lot, especially for 4-year-old children, a lot of families choose to keep their children at home. We've got more and more people homeschooling in K-12, and we've got a lot of people who choose private or faith-based that are not affiliated with any programs like First Class Pre-K. And so what that does is we think 70% is the take-up rate. When you look at the percentage of families who will want their child in a publicly funded public pre-K program.
Talk about the importance of pre-K. I know there's been different studies, out there and everything about the benefit it does, especially in early grades, maybe a real jump start to an education career. Talk about the latest research and what it's showing in terms of the head start you get, pardon the pun, by sending your child to pre-K.
So we have Alabama-specific data. There are a lot of studies nationally, but we have Alabama-specific data about our program model. And what we know is that children who attend First Class Pre-K are more likely to be reading on grade level by 3rd grade. They're less likely to be chronically absent from school, which is so important when you look at achievement and all of the benchmarks we set in K-12. They're less likely to be referred for disciplinary issues. And we're able to reduce the grade retention. So that saves money too, and that we're not having to hold children back because of a gap in achievement.
Sure.
So we know it closes the achievement gap, that children, particularly those in poverty who participate in First Class Pre-K, are outperforming their peers.
Well, and you're talking about, literacy. I mean, that's what our state is focused on, and that, the Literacy Act is coming into full effect this year in terms of that retention. So yeah, I mean, if that's the point, we're trying to get more kids to read on grade level. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but expanding that access is so important. Let me ask you about related. I know the governor has had an executive order about focusing on areas of great need, high poverty, places like that. How are we doing in terms of taking those funds and focusing on those areas of high need?
We are really, from the beginning of the program, we have focused on those high need areas. What that executive order did, what that memo did, was really help us prioritize. Now that we've got access in so many places, where are the pockets that we're still not serving children?
Okay.
So it set those benchmarks. We're trying to serve 70% of the children in those areas first. So if it's a county with higher than 20% poverty, we're really focusing on like finding those providers, finding who we can partner with locally. Just like Dolly Parton Imagination Library, it really is a partnership between a local provider and our agency.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I know there was a little bit of difference between the language in what the budget said versus the executive order. Is that going to work out okay? Are we able to translate those dollars and make it happen anyway?
Yes. So we had language about reducing wait lists.
Okay.
Some of that was in the supplemental funds, I think. And then also about serving the high poverty areas. They are not mutually exclusive. So what it's done is like we've looked at those high poverty areas with the highest wait list, and those are the ones we're starting with first. Let's make sure we get rid of any wait list in these highest need areas. The supplemental funds also helped us do some things like fund transportation. You can't just put a 4-year-old on a bus without proper restraints. And so it's helping us really with these, particularly some rural school systems that the children don't have a way to get to pre-K. It's not part of the K-12 system, so they're not part of transportation. They don't necessarily have buses with the correct harnesses. And so the supplemental funds, because they're one-time funds, we're trying to use them in a way that will that we can use the funds one time but have a long-lasting impact. And so things like transportation, after school and wraparound services, and then reducing the wait lists.
When you say wait list, does that mean a child waiting on a wait list, like want to attend pre-K, or their parents want them to, or does it mean schools, like areas on the wait list wanting to be a part of the program?
It's children.
Okay.
Actual children on the wait list.
I see. Well, you talked about retaining that quality and how important it has been to grow incrementally, never losing that quality. How important? How do you go about that? And especially, you had this huge interruption during COVID. Can you say we're out of the woods with that in terms of the impact? And how did the department go about retaining that quality in such a challenging time when I'm sure your workforce was very disrupted?
Yeah. We're still working on that. No, we're not out of the woods. We are seeing children coming into pre-K who have not been anywhere except home for half their lives. They really are bearing the brunt right now of what happened during COVID. And so children are coming in with behavior challenges, trauma. We've got children with lots of issues bigger than just learning. And I think you're seeing that in K-12 as well. We're seeing these, babies coming in, and they are just so behind developmentally. And so we have a lot of catching up to do. I think we'll be working on that for years to come. But the great thing is we've got really good partnerships with like the Department of Mental Health. We're working with them on like early childhood mental health consultation so that we can have some specific resources for families and young children who have really gone through a hard time.
Yeah. Well, if you just do the math, and if you were born, around 2018, 2019, 2020, yeah, you're coming up in a very that time when we were all in a very strange period of time, but that's such an important developmental time. So yeah, we maybe take it for granted.
Yeah. So much of the brain's development happens before they turn 5. And if you think about those children who are just now 4 years old, how much of their life was spent in this time of turmoil.
Well, we are fortunate to have you and your team, especially the educators there in the classroom, who are just dedicated to catching those kids up and really making a difference. So thank you for coming on the show. Congratulations on Dolly Parton, and we look forward to meeting her.
Thank you. Yes. You'll be on the invitation list.
Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page.
The USS Alabama is a World War II-era battleship that first served in the Atlantic Theater, but was better known for helping to take Japanese-held islands in the Pacific between 1943 and 1945. During the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the Alabama's state-of-the-art radar alerted the fleet to incoming aircraft, providing the Americans enough time to scramble fighters and decimate the attacking force. Later, the Alabama served during the Battle of Leyte Gulf and anchored in Tokyo Bay to unload Allied occupation forces. In 1964, the state of Alabama took possession of the battleship. Alabama schoolchildren raised $100,000 in nickels and dimes to help bring the ship to Mobile and create Battleship Memorial Park. The park features the Alabama, the World War II-era submarine USS Drum, and an American military aircraft collection. Battleship Memorial Park is one of the state's most visited attractions.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Coming up next week, a special episode of Capital Journal. We'll be attending the Business Council of Alabama's Governmental Affairs Conference in Point Clear. It's the largest gathering of some of the state's most prominent political and business leaders. And Capital Journal will have unique access. And if you're at BCA and see our set there in the lobby, come say hello. Join us for that show next Friday at 7:30 and Sunday at noon. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.